Just about every fight in Fortnite ends up becoming a shotgun fight, and knowing how to best utilize and know the most effective strategies available is the easiest way to stay on top. So today, we're going to be looking at movement, box fights, the best practice, and how to utilize each shotgun available. I do want to ask you guys quickly, if you do enjoy my videos or like any of my content, to leave a like and subscribe, as it helps me create more content for you guys. Other than that, let's hop right into the video. As weird as it sounds, movement is a huge aspect of winning fights. Ducking and dodging shots can help minimize your predictability and will make sure that you have a less chance of being hit. Two situations where I see this happen most often is when a player on height jumps down on the player on low ground, or goes for a jumping shot up in the air when they're in their box or when they're kind of flooring out around them. And that is because your trajectory while jumping is guaranteed and will make it much easier to track you in those situations. Let's talk about when you're on height. Two situations where you become predictable is while jumping down from height and when you're on height and you go for those jump shots, which I just talked about. Especially now in this meta, it's really risky because if you do, you're probably going to end up getting cracked pretty hard with a combat shotgun. So if you do have height, jumping down directly on top of someone is not going to end up good for you. It's harder to aim downwards than upwards, and you can't protect yourself like the player below you can. Tracking you will be easier than ever, as they won't have to move their crosshair at all while you're falling down, because you typically don't strafe too drastically while you're falling. Second is if you're flooring off above your enemy or standing in a box and your opponent is below you just staring at you. I always see a lot of players jumping in the air to go for a shot, but you're going to be pretty exposed and you won't be able to protect yourself as easily. Personally, I like to just go for a quick crouch and uncrouch, kind of like a little bit of ghost peeking to a point, and it's just to quickly get a shot off. This will minimize my time exposed, and as well, it's not a movement that is guaranteed and predictable. A quick little thing I want to throw in there is if you're in like early game where you have no mats and it's just a 50-50 shotgun battle, you're better off not jumping. I know it's kind of a habit at this point, but if you do jump, again, you're going to be much easier to track. Instead, I recommend just spamming your crouch button because it's going to be more likely that you won't be headshotted, it's going to be much easier to aim, and it won't be as easily trackable. Box fights are rather common and is more than likely what you'll run into in higher level games. Or if you have a TTV sweater in your lobby who's playing for the World Cup Finals, either or. These fights, you have to be careful and you have to know the most common tricks and edits that players do, so that way you can counter them and use those exact strats as well. Let's first take a look at the defensive side and the right timings to make smart edits on someone taking your wall. Of course, you never want to edit out on someone who has their gun out, it's not going to end up good for you. But taking shots as the player goes to break your wall is your best bet. If you catch them mid-swing and you edit on whatever side they're hitting, their pickaxe will swing and you'll have a free shot, and in turn they won't be able to break your wall to replace it since their swing will be hitting open air. Choosing the correct timing depends on the situation and varies more than if you're on the offensive, so let's take a look at how to prevent being shot by someone in a box. When you're on the offensive, you have to be really careful because you have to protect yourself, and if the player on the inside is super good, you're going to know, and they're going to be very good at making sure that you don't take their wall, and they're going to punish you if you're not careful. So when stealing a wall, to protect yourself, I recommend placing a half edited ramp because this will allow you to reset the ramp if they go for an edit shot on you, and when you're trying to steal a cone or a floor from above, placing a wall in front of you will block yourself if someone goes from shots from low. These will protect you more than just standing on a cone or a floor, and will help prevent you from getting shot. I typically do these just in case after every time I hit someone's wall, if they're a good player. This is because it's just a little bit more precaution, and especially if someone edits out on me once, I'll take it as a sign they'll probably do it again. So I make sure that I do it, even if it slows down the fight a little bit more than usual. Now, another situation where you may be lower on health or just trapped in your box, you're probably going to be getting spammed out or somebody will be pickaxing your wall. Now, you may feel like you're at a disadvantage, but just like I was talking about before, about box fighting strategies, fast edits and taking your opponents by surprise will help you crack them, and that should allow you to get some space to reset the fight and hopefully heal up. Now, one more thing I like to do, but typically loses me the wall, is I'll let my opponent break the wall completely, and then in between the time it takes them to break the wall and place down a new one, I'll get a shot off in between, and then immediately place a ramp and edit out and create a new turtle, because more than likely they'll end up taking my wall, but I should hit them for at least over 100 hopefully, and that should get them off my back for some time. Now, practice makes perfect, and when it comes to shotgun fights and box fights, I don't think you can get enough of it. Every player has different strategies in box fights, and being able to learn and encounter as many as possible will let you in turn learn more and gain more strategies for yourself. We're going to be taking a look at some of the multiplayer and single player practices you guys can do. Hands down, some of the easiest and the most fun ways to practice are Turtle Wars and Zone Wars. Turtle Wars is mostly all box fights and requires you to have fast edits and have shots that connect. It's one of my favorite because it gets you that essential practice that you really can't get as much as in such a high density in anything else. But what kind of sucks now is that Turtle Wars are mostly dead in favor of Zone Wars. But Zone Wars are also great practice as well. It won't be strictly box fighting like Turtle Wars is, but it will provide a fast-paced practice because you'll have to rotate from zone and fight players at varying heights where you're going to be more exposed. We all know what Zone Wars is, but I do want to mention it because it is one of the best ways to practice, and it will give you some of that in-game sense that you don't really get from Turtle Wars. Now, getting into some of the single player practice, I do want to first talk about something for both console and PC players, and that is my shotgun map. And I know I've talked a whole lot about that in the past, but because I really haven't seen anything else that can replicate the exact spread of the shotguns and things like that from Fortnite. Because the shotguns are pretty unique, and kind of getting that same exact feel in some other way of practice is pretty hard. And I think there's a lot of great things within this map. Now, one thing that I kind of got pointed out from you guys, I think is really cool because I definitely did not intend for it to happen, is the free building area with the zombies. Now, what's cool is since they kind of walk around and react to your builds, you can kind of practice your edits and free builds, and it's a really great way to practice and warm up. Otherwise, you do still have those 3 different edit courses that kind of vary from skill levels, and that's where you can practice your fast edits and shots for when you're editing in onto somebody's box. Now, if you're on PC, I do have a couple of really good Kovacs courses for you guys. One of my favorite is the Amphi LG 1v1 because it gets you moving as well as your opponent. This is great for not only practicing shotgun shots, but as well as tracking, which is great for both SMG and also if you're using the combat shotgun. As I've noticed myself, you're going to have to track your opponents before you go for your second shotgun shot, and it's just a really great thing to practice overall. I do want to mention that there really is no great shotgun practice on Kovacs, as like I said before, there's no good way to reproduce exactly how Fortnite shotguns work. So I recommend intermingling the two to make sure you can maximize your practice and improve your aim. Now that we have the combat shotgun and the pump in the meta, let's do a comparison between them, as I want to see how fast a pump to SMG would be in comparison to a combat shotgun spraying. And as well, let's talk a little bit about adapting to each shotgun. Now, for my little experiment, I decided to do the combat shotgun hitting twice in the head, and then the pump hitting in the head with the SMG following to the body. Now, from a standard range that you typically run into in game, which was 1 build tile away, the combat and the pump SMG actually eliminate at the exact same time. Now, of course, we have to look at the bigger picture because the combat at longer range will easily out DPS a pump, and the pump at close range has a chance to one pump or otherwise do much more damage than a combat could. And that's what's great about having both these shotguns in the meta. They both have their purpose and each outweigh the other in certain situations, and they do a pretty great job at it because it's been about a week since the pump was added and I still can't 100% decide on which shotgun I want to run. But we don't always get to choose what shotgun we want every game, so knowing the limits and how to adapt your playstyle with both is very important. I know since the pump has been out and a little bit out of habit, I've been kind of using it in situations where I know the combat would have hit 50 or 60 damage, but instead my pump only hits for like 12. And vice versa, when we first got the combat shotgun, I had a hard time spamming my shots instead of shooting and building immediately after, or editing like you normally would have with the pump. And that's where they both have their perks. I know if I'm on height in late game, beaming kids out of the sky is much easier with the combat shotgun in comparison to an AR. There's less bloom and more spread to make sure I at least hit them for something. Or I can always use the range of the combat to distance myself from my opponents to make sure he can't pump me, but I can still put an immense amount of damage into him. Or if you're running the pump, playing more aggressive and trying to take walls or trying to take more close range fights are going to be the better option. If a player inside the box is a combat shotgun, I may have a better chance of winning the fight if I'm up close, and taking that fight is going to be more beneficial. And realizing your limitations with each shotgun is going to be important to making sure you're coming out on top in fights. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite shotgun is. Is it the pump or the combat? I think the Combat is probably the best shotgun currently, but my love for hitting the 200s with the pump makes me choose it over the Combat every time. Thank you guys for watching today's video. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me over on Twitch. I've been streaming quite a lot over there and should be even more soon enough. Now, if you haven't, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more future tips and tricks and tutorials. If you want some more right away, check out the playlist and videos on screen for some great ways to elevate your game. Other than that, thank you guys all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.